Welcome to our post debate episode of the Prosperity Report Live. We're here tonight to cover our reaction to the debate between Bob Casey and Dave McCormick here in Pennsylvania. If you watched the debate, then congratulations, you made it through it. It was not the prettiest sight. It was not the proudest moment for Pennsylvania seeing Dave McCormick and Bob Casey go at each other's investments and lies and um, it definitely left you with the taste of which one of these is worse than the other. Neither of them made the case that I am best for Pennsylvania. So I hope to make that case tonight. Why a message of peace and prosperity is the right message for Pennsylvania, not a message of just attack after attack after attack. So I do want to apologize though. My normal co-host Drew could not make it tonight. He had some issues getting connected, and I actually missed some of the questions from the debate tonight because he was sending me a message, kind of like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I can't make it. It's," and it's like, "Oh, well, it's fine. We'll roll with it. We'll run with this." So. I need you people to be my co-hosts tonight. So if you have any messages, feel free to send a message in either in YouTube or in X or in Facebook, wherever you're watching this. Feel free to send messages, and we'll get to those. But we do want to address the issues from the debate, the issues that the moderator asked. Maybe I'll be the only one to answer them because a lot of the questions were not answered by either of the candidates. The ones that I was able to jot down, we'll address those. And unfortunately, without Drew being here, it would be very difficult for me to time myself. So you guys are going to have to deal with me either going long or short. I'll try to keep it under the 90 seconds that each candidate had during the debate. They had 60 seconds to answer and then 30 seconds for a rebuttal. So I'll try to keep to the 90 seconds, but I won't be able to time myself. So the first question was about Iran's strike against Israel and whether the United States should be involved. And both of these candidates said absolutely the United States needs to get involved in this. And I think that a lesson to be learned from this is that proxy wars spill over. So there was a proxy war going on between Israel and Lebanon, or between Israel and Iran in Lebanon. And what started as a proxy war is now heating up into a literal war. And this is why you ought to be very careful about getting involved in proxy wars. With America getting involved in a proxy war in Ukraine, with America wanting to get involved in a proxy war in Israel, this is a very, very dangerous thing. We ought to be very careful before we do that. We just had a major hurricane hit the United States, and our resources are going everywhere around the world, whereas it would be a lot better for those resources to be in the pockets of Americans so that then we could help our neighbors and our friends who have been affected by the hurricane. So rather than sending our resources to Israel or Ukraine or anywhere around the world, we need to take care of our own. We need to take care of those families who are suffering. We need to take care of people who are struggling right here in Pennsylvania, because that is where America's dollars should stay, is right in America. Let's see. Next question that was asked: was about immigration. So we have a huge influx of immigration right now, and it is affecting America. It's uh, it was mentioned in the vice presidential debate a little bit in this one. It's affecting everything from housing prices to wages. There is a huge influx of immigrants, and we do need to talk about how that is resolved. It's funny to hear Bob Casey try to run to the right of Dave McCormick, try to say, I'm going to be tougher on the border than you are. And Dave McCormick's like, no, I'm going to be tougher. Well, let's try to be sensible about this and think about why immigrants are coming. There are multiple reasons. There in studying this, you think of push factors and you think of pull factors. And some of the push factors that are pushing people out of the countries they're leaving is big government intervention. Big government intervention in South America and Central America, that's causing those economies to suffer, and people are looking for more productive economies. So that's one push factor. Pull factors include a relatively better economy in America. So, but there are other push factors and pull factors. The war on drugs has crippled many communities south of the border. And it's made it rather lucrative investment here in America. The fact that you can make a lot of money running drugs across the border is a pull factor of why people are coming. So we need to think about those, but we also need to think about our history. We are a country of immigrants. My great grandfather immigrated here from Germany in the early 1800s. His son ended up fighting he immigrated directly to Pennsylvania. His son ended up fighting in the Civil War. He's had descendants who have been everything from lawyers to doctors to pharmacists to factory workers to truck drivers to everything you can think of, because somebody decided to take a risk and immigrate from Germany to the United States in the early 1800s. That is something that's helped to make America who we are, is that immigration. But immigration was a lot different then, because we didn't have a social safety net. We didn't have, if you came to America, you either were productive or you literally starved. And that brought the pull factor there was the most productive people, the people who had the most confidence in their ability to help to make America better were the ones who were coming. Today, we have a robust social safety net that's bringing people who don't have that level of confidence in their own ability. We're bringing people who might even come here to rely on that social safety net. So, what I would suggest we do is make legal immigration easier, so we don't have as many illegal immigrants. One way you can have fewer illegal immigrants is make legal immigration easier with a simple criminal background check. So we don't want criminals coming over, but just have a simple criminal background check and a pledge that they will not use any social services provided by the government. That would make sure that we're not bringing criminals, and we're bringing in those people who are going to help make America more prosperous and more peaceful. The fact that we would bring in people from all over the world would help to make America a place where all kinds of people are, all kinds of countries are represented, and then America is going to be more peaceful in our diplomacy throughout the world. So we got immigration. The next issue that came up was prices and inflation. And McCormick, I'll give him credit, was closer to a right answer than Casey is. Casey's still using the ridiculous terms of shrinkflation, greedflation. He didn't use streamflation tonight. Probably if he would have had more than 90 seconds, he would have brought in streamflation. These are all words for inflation. Inflation just means that there's more money in the economy, and that leads to price inflation, which means the unit price of goods goes up. So that could mean that the size of a product you buy gets smaller and you pay the same price. But that just means the unit price has gone up. And so that's just one way of dealing with inflation. But what causes inflation isn't that they're shrinking the size of packaging. It's not that companies are seeking higher profits. Companies are always seeking higher profits. This is nothing new. The profit maximizing price is always what companies seek to do. Sometimes that's a higher price. Sometimes that's a lower price. Whenever Sears used to have sales, back whenever we used to have Sears, the reason they had sales was because they realized that if they lowered their price, they would attract more buyers, more people would come in, and they would increase their profits. So this idea of greedflation driving up prices is ridiculous. So McCormick did mention that it wasn't anything like Bob Casey's talking about, but then McCormick said it was the policies that were pursued by Casey, Harris, and Biden, the big spending policies. Well, he left out somebody who signed one of the largest spending bills in history, a man by the name of Donald Trump, because this is a problem brought to us by both parties. Both parties are addicted to spending. We need somebody from outside of the two-party system to come in and give them an intervention. Whenever you're addicted, sometimes you need an intervention. We need somebody from the outside, somebody from outside the two-party system to give the people in Washington who are addicted to overspending an intervention and say, cut it out now. We need to rein it in so that our prices can be stabilized, so that we're not suffering here in Pennsylvania anymore. So then the next issue that came up was cutting taxes. I'm all for cutting taxes. They brought up cutting corporate taxes. I'm all for cutting corporate taxes. Taxation is theft. There, I said it. If you're playing libertarian debate night drinking game, you probably just had to take a drink because it is a slogan that we say taxation is theft. All interaction between human beings ought to be consensual. And if I offer to sell you a product, you offer to buy the product, that's a consensual trade. But if I say you have to give me your money or I'm going to throw you in jail, that's no longer a consensual act. That becomes an aggressive act. So taxation is an aggressive act, and I am opposed to taxation. So if we can lower taxation, I'm all for that. But that does bring up and it is the next thing they brought up was that America just crossed over $35 trillion in debt. That is unfathomable. At one point, I think it was back in June, the interest that America paid on the debt in June surpassed all of the income tax that was collected in June. You cannot look at that and think it's sustainable. We need to take care of that. So you might say, well, John, that's all well and good, but you want to cut taxes and you want to rein in the debt. How do you do that? Well, the answer is to cut spending, because really, the taxation isn't just what we see collected by the IRS. Taxation includes things like inflation and things like deficit spending, which drains the economy from investments. Because if I'm lending money to the government, I'm not lending money to the small business that's trying to get started here in Pennsylvania. So whenever we have a large deficit or whenever we tax people directly, all of that comes from the economy, and all of that is a form of taxation. So you can't fund the whether you're borrowing the money to fund the government or if you're taxing people directly to fund the government, that's all coming out of our wallets. So the way you put an end to that is by cutting spending. We need drastic cuts in Washington, not cuts of instead of growing the government by 5%, we'll grow it by 4% and call that a cut. No, we need to truly cut the size of Washington. That means eliminating entire departments. Today, Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation, wants to outlaw drones who are in private drone operators. Like I have a friend who's a private drone operator, is going down to the hurricane area to help with search and rescue. He's going down there so his drones can get and see into places and see places that the human eye can't, to help find people who are missing. The Secretary of Transportation said, we're going to outlaw drones in that area. The way you deal with that is you eliminate the Department of Transportation. I would just eliminate the entire department. I would eliminate the entire Department of Energy. McCormick wants to move the Department of Energy to Pittsburgh. I say keep it out of my backyard. I would, Joe just mentions in chat, what about the Department of Education? How would students ever learn without the Department of Education? Yes, I would eliminate it. And guess what, Joe? I know you know this, but students learned before 1980, whenever the Department of Education was created. In fact, American test scores were going up throughout most of America's history until about 1980, whenever spending increased dramatically on education, but test scores started to level out and not make any gains. So yes, I would eliminate the Department of Education. I would eliminate the Department of Housing and Urban Development. I would eliminate department after department. ATF gone. CIA gone. We need to make drastic cuts to the size of government in order to deal with the fact that we have a $35 trillion debt. Standing on a stage calling each other names is not addressing that problem. We need to be grown-ups and really consider what needs to be done. And if it's a drastic problem, then sometimes drastic steps need to be taken. And I would be prepared to do that. So let's see. Next issue that came up was the issue of abortion, and I've said on here before, I am pro-life. I think that is the ultimate libertarian position, but lots of libertarians disagree with me on that, because libertarianism is the belief in the non-aggression principle. And this issue comes down to whether or not you believe that a human fetus is a person who deserves to be protected against acts of intervention or aggression. I believe that it is a fetus is a person. And if a fetus is a person, then killing that fetus is wrong. So, and I think that's where the debate needs to happen. If the fetus isn't a person, I will grant this. If the fetus is not a person, then laws restricting abortion would be anti-libertarian. But if the fetus is a person, then abortion is anti-libertarian. So it comes down to that argument. And I think that biologically, the fetus is a person, and we ought to accept that. But I am actually going to say I side with McCormick here somewhat. McCormick won't make that philosophical case that a fetus is a person, but he does say that it ought to be at the state level. And I agree with him on that, because I do think it's murder, and murder is a state issue. So It ought to be handled at the state level just for that very reason. So, um, and I also want to warn I want to give a warning to my pro-life friends who want to have a nationwide abortion ban. That's very dangerous territory to go into because right now in some states babies' lives are being saved. If it becomes a national issue decided nationally, those the pro-life side is likely to lose at this point. We need to change the culture first. We need to change the culture by talking about things like what is it a clump of cells or is it a human being? If it is a human being, what rights does that human being have? We need to have that conversation first before we start changing laws. And once we have those conversations, once we start changing the culture, first off, the number of abortions is going to decline even before we change laws. But secondly, then we can change the laws um, much more easily because the culture will already be there. So have those conversations. Don't be afraid to have those conversations. Talk to friends and family about what is the nature of that unborn baby, um, and that has to be first before we start passing laws. So all right. Uh, Oh, then the issue that came up was sorry, I'm looking at my notes here, and so I'm trying to be the moderator and the candidate here. Um, the issue came up of about the filibuster, and I am going to say something that's probably very unpopular, but it's so true. I love the filibuster. I absolutely the Republicans and Democrats in Washington are terrible. Anything that slows them down, I'm all for. Um, make the filibuster a 70-person majority instead of a 60-person majority that needs to get it passed. Go for it. Yes, it would make it more difficult for people like me who want. Whenever I'm trying to eliminate the Department of Education, it's going to make it harder for me. But it also makes it harder for every other senator who just wants to steal more money from you. And I do want to make it harder for them. I want to make it more difficult for them to vote to send your money to dictators around the globe. The filibuster does that. It's it just helps put the brakes on things. So unlike both candidates who kind of danced around, well, Bob Casey clearly said he would get rid of the filibuster. McCormick kind of danced around it. I love the filibuster. Let's keep it. Let's keep going with that. Next issue that came up was fracking, natural gas, those sorts of things. So I'm all for fracking. It's created a lot of jobs here in Pennsylvania. It's helps lower energy prices, and it's actually a good, clean energy. And whenever you consider things like the environmental impact of different um, of different technology, you ought to also consider the human impact. We just had a huge hurricane that hit the United States. The southern portion of the United States is especially affected. Some people blame climate change for that. I don't know if climate change was to blame for that or not. It's funny how climate change is always to blame for the bad weather, but you never, whenever you have a nice day, you never say, "Oh, well, thank you, climate change, for this nice day." It's like, does climate change have like an agenda? It's like I will only make things worse. I will never make it good. It's like almost like a. So I don't know if this hurricane was the result of climate change, but I will say that I am very grateful that we have energy to send people, to send resources, to have those search and rescue missions. The fact that we have a lot of energy in America makes it a lot easier to respond to natural disasters. So I am just so grateful that we have that. We need that energy investment to be able to respond. So whether it's caused by climate change or not, the fact that we do have the energy infrastructure in place is a good thing. And fracking gives us that opportunity. Um, so then we get them arguing back and forth over who supports investments in China more. I'm all for people making investments wherever it makes sense, and I would deregulate Pennsylvania um, as much as possible, or America as a whole. But I would remove restraints that require statewide regulations in places like Pennsylvania so that people want to invest in Pennsylvania. The reason why so many people like Dave McCormick and Bob Casey, whenever he was the auditor, the treasurer of Pennsylvania, and approved um, and did approve investments in foreign countries. The reason why so many people are investing in foreign countries is because America crushes our innovation because of regulation. So if we pull back those regulations, then people are going to find investment in America much more desirable. But while we don't, whenever we don't do that, we don't want to cut off people's ability to make investments wherever they can in the world. Because when people are invested in countries like, whenever Americans invest in China, it makes both China and America safer. The fact that the fact that China owns a substantial portion of America's debt helps to bring peace between our two nations, because China doesn't want to see America go bankrupt. Then the debt that they hold is worthless. Whenever Americans are investing in China, they don't want to see China fall apart, because then their investments are worthless. So being able to invest, being able to trade, being able to peacefully interact with one another brings peace on a world stage. It also brings prosperity. So, peace and prosperity in Pennsylvania. We need to be able to invest. We need to be able to deregulate economies so that we have more opportunities here in America. And that brought up the U.S. Steel issue with the Japanese steel company thinking of buying it. Again, if America was deregulated, then it would be American companies who are in these positions, and I would just deregulate it right now. I would say if a Japanese company wants to invest in Pennsylvania, I'm all for it. Let them. I know it's not popular to say, but if a Japanese company wants to buy U.S. Steel and invest here in Pennsylvania, that is a free market at work. If you don't want the Japanese companies doing that, then the answer is to help make Pennsylvania more prosperous so Pennsylvanian companies can continue to invest in Pennsylvania. And the way you do that is by electing John Thomas to United States Senate. So let's see. I think the last issue that came up was the mental health crisis that's affecting our kids. I do see that. I work for a school, so it is absolutely something that I see. It's a school of choice. I work for a charter school, so a lot of kids come to our school because of issues that they've had at other schools. So I see it. I see the mental health crisis that we're having on our children, and is part of it brought to you by social media? Absolutely, it is. So both candidates talked about banning social media use by kids. I don't like that solution. I think parents ought to monitor the social media use of their children. Um, we don't want government stepping in and restricting this. I actually read an article not long ago about how Zoomers are getting off of social media to a greater extent. They're starting to do things like putting their phone on do not disturb for most of the day, so that then they have a dedicated time to get on social media. That's something that a lot of my Generation X friends don't do. So sometimes that we can learn from younger generations who go through these struggles, and rather than ban them from it, we need to talk about how to use social media sensibly, how to set limits. When is the right time to go on? Because maybe some kids are a little bit more mature than other kids. Maybe some kids can handle it better. But having these conversations with children is very important. But that mental health discussion didn't just focus on kids. It also talked about the fact that so many of our soldiers are taking their own lives whenever they come back from the wars, and that is a true tragedy. That so many of our soldiers are taking their lives. That's why I would be very careful before I do things like get us involved in another proxy war in Israel or Ukraine or Iran. Um, I don't want to make more soldiers who are taking that act of desperation. Um, we've just created too many of them. Dave McCormick wants to invade Mexico. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that's going to lead to more of these tragedies. So that was all of the questions I wrote down. So I guess I have my closing statement that I can make right now. And for my closing statement, I just want to stress that I want to just give you a call for optimism. We are Pennsylvania is one of the greatest places in the world to live. We have some of the greatest people in the world living here in Pennsylvania. I've had the pleasure of going from town to town, from county to county, especially during the signature gathering portion of the campaign, and meeting so many wonderful Pennsylvanians and so many young people who are who are who are embracing the ideas of peace and prosperity and want to see Pennsylvania having a robust economy that's built on sound money and on peaceful non-interventionism throughout the world. This is our future. We have hope. We have a bright future ahead of us, and we just need to recognize that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results isn't the way that we bring it about. We've So many people think, oh, well, I voted Republican for the past 50 years. If I vote really hard Republican this time, it's going to change things. Or I voted Democrat for the past 50 years. If I vote very hard Democrat this time, it's going to change things. This is the year to try something new. This is the year where we can send a message that no, we're done with that bickering that we saw back and forth on the debate stage tonight. We want real solutions. We want limited government. We want a free Pennsylvania where people are free to pursue prosperity in peaceful situations. So thank you for tuning in today. Oh, let me get to questions in chat. All right, we got did one of your opponents really say we should invade Mexico? Unfortunately, Joe, yes. One of my opponents did say we should invade Mexico, not far from my home in Cranberry, Pennsylvania. He said he would. We need to send troops to Mexico to take out the drug cartels. Not a good idea. And I think that's the only question. I see the DC Daily posted a link, probably to McCormick's wonderful idea, not wonderful idea. Don't want things taken out of context here to invade Mexico. So that's it for tonight, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I'm here every Thursday night, started at 9 o'clock. So it's not always a debate recap episodes. We do other fun things. I was on the Larry Sharp Show earlier today, so you could check that out as well. I will be in Pittsburgh for an event on Saturday. Next Saturday, I'll be serving at a community meal here in Katanning. Lots of things coming up. Follow me on Twitter. That's probably the best way to see what's going on. Follow me on Facebook. Follow me on all those good things. If you subscribe to my Substack, then you can get my free ebook. So if you have not yet subscribed to me on Substack to get my free ebook, do that now. Let me grab that link for you. That is johnthomaspa.substack.com. johnthomaspa.substack.com. And let me throw that into chat. So if you click on that Substack link, it will take you to a subscribe page. Subscribe to that. You'll get an email with a link that will allow you to get my free ebook. So lots of great. There are other Easter eggs there too. Whenever you get my free ebook, there are other Easter eggs that I'm sure you will enjoy. There's even a video there from my wife. So make sure to subscribe to the Prosperity Report and get that free ebook. And thank you all. And we'll see you next week.